All right. Alumni spotlight today. Andrew Benchic, back-to-back big fellows. Yeah, I just didn't give the big guys love for a while. I was realizing that. So now we had you and Pat Dochinetz back-to-back. And, Andrew was from Miamisburg High School. And, he was here from 2005, our second recruiting class. Kind of a big coup. We got him when he was looking at a couple D2 schools, remember, back in the day. And we'll talk a little about recruiting here in a minute. And then ended up the injury in 2007, came back and was all conference in 2008 and 9. And we'll kind of talk about what he did after that, going to law school and what he's up to these days. But great to have you on, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. And why don't you tell everybody what you're up to these days?
At this time, I'm currently the chief assistant municipal prosecutor at the Putnam County Prosecutor's Office. In that role, we are a county of about 35,000 people, so we have two full-time assistants as well as our elected and a part-time assistant. I focus primarily on misdemeanor criminal cases. I prosecute anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 cases, and that includes everything from your minor misdemeanor traffic citation all the way up to domestic violence, assault, operating a vehicle under the influence. I do provide support, and occasionally we'll do felony cases. So I present cases to the grand jury. I'll go through felony trials, jury trials, bench trials, any type of hearings on motion to suppress. I represent the local townships and communities and civil matters, as well as do civil delinquent tax foreclosure for the county. So
good stuff. And you worked this is probably about the second year in that role, because you worked at a law firm prior to that for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I'm in my fourth year of prosecuting now, but wow, it's going fast.
I know. Yeah.
And I was with a private firm for about 15 months prior to that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, let's go back to the recruiting process out of old Miamisburg, and let's kind of go back to that. Just kind of talk a little bit what you remember about that process.
Yeah. So I remember, especially getting in contact with ONU. It was kind of late in the overall game when we got into contact. I think I got a phone call from Denver Williams was the first initial contact that I had, and I had heard about ONU, but I'd always heard about it on the academic side of things, and had a chance to talk to him. It was actually kind of my mom that Denver got a hold of first and was looking to talk to me about. And at that point, I visited and was considering a few other schools, and my mom actually kind of, coached me to go on the visit to ONU because she had heard a lot of really good things about the school, and she knew a lot of folks that had gone there, and or had heard great stories. So it was one of those things.
Smart lady. He's a smart lady. Yeah.
So we made the trip up, and, I think at that point, the furthest north on 75 I had been was maybe Piqua. So after that, you just start seeing cornfields. I'm like, man, what am I doing here? But then I got on campus and was just blown away. Got an opportunity to drive around, met Coach Bendekovic, who was the offensive line coach at that point in time, and instantly hit it off with him. Met you, had great conversations. And during the process of the visit, I got an opportunity to sit down with Dr. Joanne Scott, who at that point was one of the main criminal justice professors, and have a conversation. And I was really just kind of blown away that there was so much of the day that was kind of curtailed to what I was looking at doing and my interest, and basically all my questions were answered.
Sure.
And it was one of those that on all the other visits that I went on, I felt good about them, but man, I felt great when I came on campus. And at the end of the day, I remember looking at my mom and I said, this feels right. And, once that happened, we kind of started communicating back and forth and said, okay, how can we make this work? And we were able to get it done. So, we were signed, sealed, and delivered and ready to go.
It was a big deal for us because I know you definitely had a couple other D2 options and like that. So I remember it well. But your mom's a smart lady. So we appreciate her kind of pushing to come check it out. And then it kind of rests as history from there. So it's pretty cool. I'm trying to think back in those days, you were criminal justice. Were you thinking at that point you were going to law school, or I don't remember that necessarily being the case early on. Or was that something you evolved to? Maybe at that point.
That was really something that I didn't, and it's kind of one of those things that, as an 18-year-old kid, the reason I chose criminal justice really was I was looking kind of at job security. I knew that, we're always going to have crime. It seemed like a safe field to go into, and one that I would enjoy. But once I got on campus and, admittedly academics in high school, they always came easy to me. So once I got into college and got into actually studying criminal justice classes, that was something I was really passionate about. And, my academics did really well. And, some professors kind of put it in my ear, and it was one of those I'd never really considered. And then as time kind of went on, some things kind of fell into place, and it happened. And I kind of think that it led me to where I should be, but never really saw that I was potentially go.
That's pretty cool how that kind of comes together for everybody, different ways and times and all that. So, well, let's talk about some memories, some of the moments as a player. We came in, we had a really good offensive line that first year, kind of had to pay your dues a little bit, but then you worked yourself into the playing time pretty early in your career after that. Had the little setback, that 2007 season, but came back. And as I said earlier, all conference the last 2 years. And in 2009 was a great season for us, kind of springboarding back to the national elite level. It was a heck of a season, just barely missed the playoffs. But talk about those things that stand out as a player.
Well, I kind of say I don't want to say I'm in between two generations, but, I'm in the old generation where, Coach Russell was a senior when I was a freshman. So him coming full circle to coach us as a fifth year.
It was a real treat, right?
Yeah, I said, great. I was harassed by him twice. But, no, from that, as a freshman, obviously the biggest one's got to be, I was fortunate enough to make the travel squad the whole year, and kind of get to understudy under that great offensive line. And, being there when we beat Mount on the field, seeing that, and ended I think it was a 110 game streak. How can you not put that up there? That was
sure.
But then, everything in between, we were part of the first team to go and travel abroad. We went to Germany, and being kind of a history nut, like that was, that could not have been a more perfect trip to mix those. From a personal game standpoint, for me, it's got to be North Central 2009. The year before, I remember hearing everything about their linebackers and how they were all everything, and they had this just big physical defensive line, and we just kind of said, yeah, we'll see. And in 2008, we physically manhandled them up front, but we didn't get the result we wanted. And then to come back in 2009, and we're like, we got you, and there's nothing about it.
That was a big one for us to get us kind of, back to that level of being a, elite program. So that was a huge one.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, you a lot of great moments on the field. Then you graduate, and you, if you're not sure exactly what the next move is, Reichel wants you to go with him to coach up at Notre Dame College. Bill Riker, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, had left the year before, I guess it was, and maybe your junior year, and he wants you to come coach. You say, hey, I'm going to try it out. Some personal things didn't lead you continued on that path, which is probably a good thing, because now you're better off than chasing the crazy coaching dream. But, that was probably a pretty good experience that then ends up leading, when you go to law school, you end up helping us while you're in law school for the 3 years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's, kind of to go back to, I genuinely think everything happens for a reason. And that's kind of what led me back to law school and ONU. Obviously went up to Notre Dame College, and I was having a great time coaching, but, kind of like life, things happen, it doesn't work out. So you adjust, you improvise, you overcome, and, took a year off, and was kind of looking at the next move and decided, I'm going to take the LSAT. I'm going to apply. And I applied, and ended up getting into the three main schools I applied to. I applied to University of Dayton, I applied to ONU, and I applied to Ohio State. And just for me, it came down to Ohio State, and it came down to ONU. And, from an academic standpoint, being in a big city and knowing the distractions there and all of that, I said, I know I can do well academically in it. So I think my next move after I put my deposit down for that, I called you and said, hey, I'm coming up in May.
Said, hey, let's go.
let's go. So
It's very cool. I always love the double bear status that we talk about. You know, you're twice a polar bear, which is pretty special, and that's good stuff. I think one of the things we can't skip over is
yeah,
the experience that you used to have, your field experience, helping transport criminals. Talk a little about this, because every time you'd come back from these trips, I couldn't help but think about Nicolas Cage and Con Air movie, if anybody knows the reference to that. But give a quick overview of that whole deal.
right. So I kind of, in just some folks I met and doing off-season stuff and all of that, I got put into contact with a transport coordinator for a company called Prisoner Transportation Services of America, company based out of Nashville, and
Not your typical student part-time job, by the way.
No, not at all. So we kind of talked, and he said, "Hey, this company has a contract with the the state of Hawaii's Department of Corrections, and they need prisoners transported. Is that something that you would be interested in?" And of course I said, yeah, but I think we were getting ready to head into spring ball or something like that. I said, well, let me check and make sure we're good. And I think I came to you and kind of explained the situation. You may have looked at me funny, but said, hey, if it's school related, all right, I'll allow it.
And I remember, if I remember correctly, I think it paid pretty good too. So I wasn't going to stand in your way from making that kind of money that most.
No. So I got paid for it, and I got a free trip to Hawaii. I wasn't there long, but it was the only time I'd ever been. So, and I talked to my professors, and they said, not only will we excuse you from class, but if you write a 5-page paper on it, we'll give you extra credit. So I couldn't stand.
That's pretty cool.
I went out there, did the job, hit it off really well with the coordinator, and he ended up turning into a big brother I didn't really know I needed, but he invited me on the next one. Pretty soon I'm doing them regularly.
Yeah.
And in the year, it was funny because I was doing them domestically, and then in the year between finishing up my undergrad and law school, I ended up doing a lot of international trips for them. So I got to see parts of the world that I never would ever think I'd see. Some of those leading to some crazy stories. And, when you tell people I've been here, and, man, it's wild that the stories you get from that. But, it kind of prepared me for what I do now, because, I got to tell you, after doing that, there's nothing that really surprises me anymore.
Sure. I remember a few times you'd come back and say, well, I can't tell you who I moved this week, but here's where I went. And there might be some names that even would be familiar if you follow the news, but it was pretty cool to hear some of the stories, at least that you could tell when you'd come back. I would always look forward to that, but pretty cool. A really unique experience you had here as a double bear and a great football player, and so proud of you, and love seeing your success now and seeing the posts of your wife and the kids and all that. So keep up the great work. And it's nice having you not too far away that we can see you every now and then. Every now and then you pop in. Sometimes even unexpected, which is kind of nice when you're pretty close. That's good stuff.
It is.
All right, man. Appreciate it. I'm going to pause.